Good afternoon. I'd like to, first of all, talk a bit about culture, traditions, and practices. In the book Orange Shirt Day, Phyllis Webstad talks about a relationship with her grandmother, about the traditional food, and the experience that was so meaningful and so heartfelt for her. She gained a lot of understanding just being with her grandmother. We know that indigenous people always talk about our relationship with Adewaka, or Creator. They talk about how a spiritual action happened long ago, and that spiritual relationship brought forward to our people practices for men and for women. And those practices were also taught to the little ones that came into this world. The gifts of Creator, we call them angels, or Mahpiechizan is another word for angels. And because life was sacred, the community took the time to educate and help the young ones understand about being a visitor in this world. And so it took a community to provide that experience for them. In that experience, the grandmothers taught them the understanding of respect, the understanding of kindness, the understanding of sharing, and the understanding of giving. And the grandfathers, they taught them the understanding of courage, bravery, truth. And so the kids were given a most positive gift in their early years, so that they can understand who they truly are through the love that surrounded them by all. And this love would extend from when they're born all the way up until their early teens or mid-teens. And then from there, the knowledge that they gain would be their tools to start living their life in this world. The wisdom that they now have would help them, guide them, and understand the true meaning about how to come and live in this world. So Phyllis talks about that. The knowing and the being of indigenous people, which is very important. Yes, there is times they talk about hunting. There's times that they talk about gathering. There's times that they talk about fishing. All those wonderful gifts. But if you look at it, hunting was very important to us, because the Creator, He said to us that the animals will provide you with food, and they will provide you with clothes, and they will provide you with medicine, which is a really good thing. You know, for many, people took the buffalo, and they look forward to the feasts that were created because of the buffalo. And they look at the hide of the buffalo. You know, teepees were made from the buffalo. Winter blankets were made from the buffalo. Winter clothing were made from the buffalo. Footwear, pants, shirts, coats, hats, all those wonderful gifts. And the medicine that the buffalo brought. You know, the scientists, they call it collagen. And the old people knew that that came from the bones of the buffalo. And they would eat the bone marrow to ensure that their bodies are strong. But also the bone marrow is also used for the kids for baby food. They use that for baby food so the kids can be strong. So when we talk about ways of knowing in culture and traditional practices, it was the practice that brought that bond, that meaningful bond, to families, to relatives, relatives, and how they would acknowledge themselves each and every day by calling themselves by their indigenous name or how they were related to one another. For example, my grandmother was my first teacher, and I loved her dearly. And I called her Makushin, Annie. And I really appreciate the time that she took to teach me. And long ago, it was that feeling that our old ones gave us so we can see this world in a very positive and respectful way. Knowing that the plants and the trees were a place where we would gather those medicines for healing. Because Creator, that's what the Creator said. The plants and the trees are medicines. If you get sick, go to them. Build a relationship with them. And they will help you. They will bring healing. And of course, many of us, when spring comes and summer comes, we're off picking berries. And that's another gift. You know, when a grandma comes up to you and says, mi tausen, ne ujumiche, hazota tunwa chingat. You know, when a grandmother comes up to you and says, here, can you fill up this pail for me? I would like some blueberries, or Saskatoons, or strawberries, or raspberries, or high bush cranberries, or gooseberries, any berry. And because we loved our grandparents so much, or even our aunties and uncles, we didn't hesitate. We saw it as an opportunity of giving back. And it was a rewarding feeling when we come back with that pail full of berries and you'd see the smile on their faces. Oh, that's a wonderful feeling. And they would say, ishnis, ostuna pinamat. You know those words? It means I'm so grateful for what you've done. And that's what kinship's about. Kinship, that truly amazing feeling that we feel by working with our relatives in our community. And the water is very sacred because many of us, angels from heaven, they came to this world by way of water. We sat there for 9 months and then we came to this world. The old people, they remind us, they tell us that this water is very sacred. Look after it. Not only does it look after the human beings, but the water looks after everything that you can see with your naked eye that Creator put in His world needs the water. So we're always told to be very respectful of the water. You know, the trees, many of us lived in teepees long ago. And a lot of the trees were not freshly cut. A lot of them were dry or laying on the ground, and the grandmothers and the mothers and the aunties and the daughters would gather them, enough to make a home to surround that buffalo hides around them. So when we talk about hunting, it was our way of looking at it in today's worldview, which we call economics. Everybody had a job. Everybody was happy. By working together, they created those important things that we need to live in this world. Gathering of medicines. Yes, our old ones were, if you look at it, they call them health scientists. Where did the scientists today go to get the knowledge from? Of course, they went to Mother Earth. Mother Earth has all the gifts that we need to live in this world. So our old ones, they developed that relationship, knowing which plants would bring great healing. If you had a toothache, you had an earache, you had a tummy ache, or if you were sick in here, your lungs, your heart, your kidney, there was always medicine for that. And the old ones knew, the grandmas knew where to go to find it. So we knew about health sciences and medicine. So Phyllis talks about that wonderful experience with his grandmother. And it is for many of us that are like her. We truly cherish those moments with our grandparents, our grandmothers, grandfathers, because the stories that we hear from them, they still echo in our hearts, in our minds, And they remind us that we too have to do the same thing. So when we talk about indigenous way of knowing and being, it's talking about building a relationship with the land, with the mountains, with the trees, with the plants, with the water, and those ones that live in two worlds, the animals that live in the water and live in the ground, we also respect those ones too. The winged ones are relatives that bring us so many gifts. And because of this relationship, there was a time when the old ones would give the children indigenous names. Wahase Tuskin, Little Bear, Wagia Chade, Eagle Heart, names like that. And it was amazing because they earned those names because of the relationship or the dreams that they may have. And it was so meaningful that we were still abiding and living by the laws of Creator. You see, the natural laws for indigenous people is actually our Constitution. That's what we live by. It is unwritten, and there's a reason why. Because if you want change, or if you want something to make you feel so amazing, it's the experience of going out and receiving that knowledge and that wisdom that's going to open your heart. It's going to open your eyes. It's going to awaken your spirit. And I guess that's what the old people talk about, the power of kinship, the power of love, the power of kindness, the power of respect. So when the children were taken to the residential schools, they missed a very important part of their journey in this world, a part where they could have learned many things from the old ones, but were not given the opportunity. So when we talk about the residential schools, people say that the schools were a good thing for us. People say that the schools were going to turn us into Christians, that we had no religion. But I like to say that we had that spiritual relationship. Stories like the white buffalo calf woman, who brought us meaningful understanding, who taught the people many things, and he brought with her many gifts. And today, we acknowledge those stories. It becomes part of who we are. So, we knew that Mother Earth was the greatest institution that mankind could ever receive. The greatest university on this planet. Now I take those words because I heard those words before when I read a book about Tatanga Mani, walking buffalo, my relative from beneath me. I heard him say that. So today I echo those words as well. I understand what he's talking about when he's talking to the people. So in Alberta, there was 25 residential schools, mostly run by the Catholic Church. And Canada put laws in place, Civilization Act, the British North American Act, the treaties, laws that were used to put Indigenous people or First Nations people in reservations. Now, I think the first law that had an impact on our people was the day that we went to sign treaty. Prior to treaty, the land, the resources, religion, children, they all belong to the First Nations families, the Indigenous people. And they were invited to come and sit to look at how, if it is possible, that we could share this land with the newcomers. I understand this decision was not decided immediately. I think there was days that went by until they came to consensus to talk about signing the treaty. Our old ones talk about the newcomers asked if we can share this land and resources with them. They asked that they would not bother with our way of living. They will respect us. They would respect our governance. They would respect our spirituality. They will respect how we hunt and gather to feed our people, to look after our people. They created a medicine chest. And in that medicine chest, our people said, we want our medicines to be a part of it. The trees and the plants and the water. We want to be able to gather those freely without any interruption. And that was the beginning of a treaty that we did not understand fully. Because when you sit with someone, if you're not clear on your intention, then it hurts the other person. And I think that is what happened on the day of the treaty. Because once the treaty was signed, those other acts that I talk about were created. That is when, because we became the Queen's subjects, because it says that right on the treaty, on behalf of the British Crown, I, the Queen of England, will now set aside tracts of land for her set Indians. Meaning now she owns a bunch of Indians. And we call them subjects. And because we were subjects, she can do as she pleased. And as a result, residential schools were created. As a result, parents, grandparents, chiefs, councilmen, headmen could do nothing when the government sent their mounted police into the community to gather all the children to attend residential school. Like I said, there was 25 in this province. Kids were taken as early as 5-year-old, and they were there until they were 16. And the government made a statement that said, we must find a way to kill the Indian in the child. And this is the way we will do it. If we remove them from their homes, they will not learn their heathen ways. They will learn in those schools Christianity. They will become Christians. Those were the words that were echoed in the in Parliament in Ottawa. It echoed so loud that everyone believed in those statements. So it's no wonder that we had no rights in this country, because all the politicians supported and believed in that this way was going to be the only way and the best way to kill the Indian and the child. So it's good to know that now we have turned hundreds of years of pages, and now we want to create a new story. A story that brings us together. There is no commissioners here. There is no RCMP here. There is no lawyers here. There's just us, the people of the land, that are sitting here talking about what can we do? How do we find those solutions to be able to work together? And I acknowledge Phyllis Webstad and all those who are writing those books to bring that message of truth. But the Creator said, where there is truth, there is hope. And that is what we're seeking. So, I will not talk about what happened in those schools, but I also know that they were very horrific. I myself, I am a first generation, or I could be second generation because my grandfather went and my mother and my dad went. I understand what was done to them. Not knowing what was done to them was the hardest thing, because we didn't understand where that pain was coming from, where that hurt was coming from, and the action where it was coming from. But now we know. Now I know. Because of the TRC, and because with working with a lot of schools here in my area, I've had the opportunity to sit with kids. So we must do something. And I think there is another tool that is being used widely across Canada. And that one is the blanket exercise that shows pre-contact, that shows treaty, that shows residential school, all the actions that came out of the term doctrine of discovery. It shows that. I sat in many of those sessions with children from grade 5 all the way to grade 12. You know what makes me happy? They're innocent. And people who are innocent have that open heart. They have that open mind. They see what is right and they know what is wrong. And that's what these stories are about, to find out. And another tool that I talk about is Project of Heart. That's another one. It takes you on a journey. There's 5 steps. Recognizing that there is residential school. Second step is understanding how many are in your area. Third step is identifying and recognizing who the survivors are. Fourth step is inviting them to your community or your school. And the 5th step, you know, there's a reason why we educate our heart and our mind and our spirit. So we can take action within ourselves. We can demonstrate the kindness and the respect that's needed to change those negative things that we hear about, or the negative things that we feel. And the only way we're going to do that is we've got to take action. And that's what step 5 is about. Social justice. In your schools, in your community, pick one item. And there is many to choose from. Pick one item and bring it forward, making that change. And when we talk about reconciliation, that's what it is. I hear people say that reconciliation, we have a long ways to go. I like to say it's only going to get longer if we don't sit together and we don't share our own understanding, because we got to own up to what we understand, and we got to bring forward that we support the decision that I have made for myself. So residential schools, yes, they're part of our history. Indian Act is part of our history. The treaties are part of our history. The past system is part of our history. And so we need to understand why. We need to understand why these things were created. So another thing that I was asked to talk about was reconciliation. I know I highlighted a lot of the topics that I experienced in terms of reconciliation. But I'm going to share with you a story. March 2014, sorry. When I sat at the TRC event here in Edmonton, I sat and I listened. And I heard the stories of the old ones, the elders. And I saw tears that day. I saw pain coming out because of the tears. And I sat and I listened. And as I looked around the room, I saw the old people, their eyes. And I recognized those eyes. They were same as my grandmother, same as my grandfather, same as my parents. I recognized that. And that is when I said to myself, what do I need to do? You know, this is the first time I'm hearing the word reconciliation. It's the first time I'm hearing the word actions. And that's when I realized that it's my action that's going to bring forward reconciliation. It is my understanding that's going to help make other people understand. And maybe not too far away, we can celebrate a day. Instead of calling it Treaty Day or Canada Day, we can call it Reconciliation Day. We can make an event about it, event that will draw people. People will come because they understand. People will come because they have a story to share. People will come because they have an understanding that they want to give. So to the teachers, you're bringing these topics to your classroom. I thank you for that. Because the topics that I'm talking about, that I've just spoke about, were never talked about in the education curriculum. It is now that we are starting. And to the principals of the schools, you are the chief. You are the leader of your community. I ask that you act upon those items to educate the children. And to the school boards and the trustees, you have great responsibility. Because now you're going to look at and you're going to hear the eyes of all children. The stories are no longer going to be one-sided. The stories are not only going to come from the European standpoint. It is time that the stories come from Indigenous worldview as well, or any ethnic group that comes to this country. They too are part of our history now. And we must make welcome to those stories too. So I encourage you to do those things. Children should not be hurt by the actions of government. Children should not be hurt or forgotten because of the people in their lives, whether it be their parents, whether it be the teachers, whether it be other professionals. We have to make time to make this place, Mother Earth, Inamakuchi, the most wonderful place. A place where people have treasured memories. A place where experiencing the land is so meaningful. We have good stories to tell. Those are the things that we need to do. So I thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. And I wish you all the best. Today we began this day with a prayer, asking Creator to give us that story that people will want to listen to, that story that people will feel in their hearts. Awachi omijin. When you feel something in your heart, you'll always think about it. And when you learn something, your mind will always want to do better. What can I do better? So these are the things that we hope to achieve. And only you can help us do that. Ishnis Pinamat. Thank you.